The Seven Dwarfs. At the edge of the forest, there is a small cottage. It is not hard to find. Follow the sweet smell of wood smoke, and it will lead you along a hard-beaten clay path to our door. We have been living here for so many years now that we can't remember a time when we didn't. Work is hard. It is often cold in the cottage. When we come home at night, we live like monks, tiny monks. To tell the truth, my name is Stephanie, and my brothers are Ethan, Nathaniel, Ashab, Samuel, Joseph, and Solomon. Some nights when the house is so noisy with snoring and murmuring that I can't go to sleep, I look out the window at the moon and I think about Snow White. One day, a messenger from the king arrived with an invitation to the wedding of Snow White and the prince. "What will we wear? We can't go dressed like this," Solomon complained nervously. "It will be the king's pleasure to provide you the proper attire," said the messenger, before riding away on his horse. When the king's tailor was sent to our cottage with his three helpers, they took our measurements up and down and around the waist. "You're quite small, aren't you?" stuttered the tailor. He was right. We are small. We discussed the fabrics after turning the pages of the leather-bound swatch book. We chose a splendid indigo velvet for pants, jackets, and hats. Later, my brothers and I went to the woods and caught a pheasant. We took its feathers to decorate our hats. When their tailor returned with our new clothes, we could hardly recognize ourselves. "Well, le habit fait et moi," he whispered as he adjusted the feather. A few days before the wedding, 3 carriages arrived to take us to the palace. The first one was decorated with fine sculptures and painted angels on the ceiling. It was wide enough for us to all sit on the same leather seat. The second carriage was for our pig, King Henry. The goats and chickens rode in the third. We had a superb trip through the countryside. All the villagers came out of their houses to stare as we passed. When we arrived at the palace, the large gates of the outer wall opened wide for us. The carriage stopped in front of a huge doorway, framed with rows of marble columns as tall as the highest trees in the forest. "You're here!" cried a familiar voice, rushing down the stairs towards us. It was Snow White, as beautiful and fresh as I remember her. Welcome to the palace," proclaimed the king, accompanied by our friend. "I'm so happy you could come," said Snow White as she hugged us, each in turn. Prince Gabriel, her betrothed, a very tall young man, shook our hands firmly. "Good to see you again," he said. "Come on, let me show you to your room," said Snow White. We followed her into the palace, down a long, mirrored hallway that multiplied our images so many times we got lost counting. Our room was large enough to contain the entire cottage, and the bed was big enough for all of my brothers and I to roll around on without even touching each other. "Whee!" cried Ashab as he jumped up and down on the bed. After we unpacked, a valet knocked on the door and invited us to a light afternoon meal in our honor. Savory cocoa sprinkled with sugar over buttered bread and some delicious marmalade of rose petals. "How is your work in the mine?" asked Snow White, who had joined us. "Cold," said Solomon. "Dark," added Nathaniel. "The same," I said. "And the mushrooms? Are the mushrooms in the meadow still as delicious as I remember?" she asked. "Oh, yes," I answered. "Just the same." We then presented her with a box of our best shiny ore stones. There was polite applause from the ladies and gentlemen of the court. "Aren't they charming and so tiny?" one woman exclaimed. "Yes, so marvelous, clever, and so small," commented her companion. That evening, a choir of birds sang delicate melodies. A formal meal was served on the terrace. We were given lace napkins and nervously looked around to see what other people did with them. When they laid them on their laps, we did too. Round, soft objects were served on fine, sculpted china. We were told they were potatoes, a vegetable that came from a far-away country called America. After dinner, the prince introduced us to what he called cards, rectangular pieces of paper stamped with images of kings and queens, an invention that had come from China, he said. He showed us how to play, and the ladies and gentlemen of the court applauded again. It was fun to hold kings and queens in our hand. Well done, the prince laughed, and everyone nodded. Over the next few days, we flew kites, swam in the pond, and played croquet, using mining hammers as our mallets. The prince had organized a circus for us with monkeys, elephants, and camels. Acrobats soared gracefully, and a magician changed huge monsters into hummingbirds. We had never seen anything like that. Finally, the day arrived for the king to officially receive us before his throne. All the dukes and lords and kings were in attendance. "Thank you for saving Snow White," the king began, "and for your service to my land. And people will forever be grateful. In recognition of your noble deeds, I shall make you all dukes of the forest." And with that, he hung huge shining gold medallions around our necks. "It is my desire that you become part of my court," the king said, smiling broadly. "There is a cottage for you in the back garden, and if you like, you may be the masters of the royal forge. I would be pleased, little dukes, if you would teach me the secrets of the forest." "Did you hear that?" whispered Nathaniel. "We get to stay in the palace forever." "Thank you for your kind offer, your majesty. We shall consider it," I said. There was a murmur of surprise and disapproval from the lords and dukes. Even some of my brothers were stunned as I looked up at the king's darkened face. "As you wish." On the day before the wedding, we were offered to select the flowers. We rode a golden carriage to the finest garden in the kingdom. We picked blue forget-me-nots and crinkled white peonies for Snow White's bouquet. Pleased with our collection, we carried the huge bouquets of bundles of flowers back to the palace. But just for a moment, we arrived in the main hall. A tall waiter carrying a tray of wine glasses for the wedding reception glided around the corner towards us. "Look out, Joseph," I cried. The waiter collided with Joseph, and the forget-me-nots went flying into the air. "Help!" screamed the waiter. And Nathaniel grabbed his legs. "I've got you," shouted Nathaniel. But that caused the waiter to tip over, and the chambermaid, who was carrying an armful of linens, the maid fell against the sideboard, knocking over a fishbowl. All of this was too much for one of King's monkeys, who jumped up and down on the banister and clapped his hands. Joseph was too embarrassed to speak. The chambermaid picked up the goldfish and rushed down the hall to find some water just as the king's chamberlain came on the scene. "What's going on here?" he crowed. "You little people must stay out of the way. You are making a nuisance of yourself. We are very busy right now." Exhausted by the day's events, we didn't feel like having supper. So we kissed Snow White goodnight and retired to our room. I lay on the giant bed wide awake, while with the others asleep, I got up and went to the window to watch the swans in the pond below, playing with the shimmering reflection of the moon. I felt uneasy in the vast palace. Solomon stirred, then crawled out of bed and came to the window. "Isn't it wonderful here?" he said. "And the food is so good, too. Listen, Stefani, we should accept the king's offer to stay. I'm sick of the mine, and so are the others. Look at these beautiful clothes, these soft beds." "Yes," I agreed. "It's a nice life." "Stefani, it's the perfect life," Solomon replied as he put his hand on my shoulder. "And there's nothing more," and headed back to bed. Eventually I drifted off to sleep, dreaming of the day we had met Snow White. If you're enjoying this book, have your parents check it out. Until next time, bye.